The slowdown in the chip sector may be over. Intel beat on both the top and bottom lines in its fourth quarter report after the bell yesterday, and it offered an upbeat outlook as well. Shares rising this morning as they did after the numbers hit, up about 6%. Angelo Zino joins us now from CFRA Research. Surat Sethi, of course, still with us as well. Angelo, what's your take? I mean, what drove this beat?
To us, it wasn't much of a surprise. I think the magnitude of the beat was more the surprise than the actual fact that we're now seeing a turn in the overall business. You kind of started seeing the signs of the recovery at the end of the third quarter. But really kind of the real beat here is really on the data center side of things, in our view. That's really what investors care most about. That's really the long-term secular growth story for Intel. And the fact that we saw a 19% growth out of that side of things is really, we think, the surprise and what investors should be focused on.
So Intel, I think, was the kind of the value play in the semiconductor space. Looking at the read-through to the data center or cloud computing, there are other players like NVIDIA. How do you see that affecting those players? Because it looks like finally it's been a few quarters, about a year actually, since the market was contracting. Is this better for the other stocks, or is this specific to Intel?
No, I mean, again, I think, as far as our concerns for Intel, we have a hold recommendation on the shares, largely because of our concerns on the PC side of things. We do think there's going to be a leg down in PCs in the second half of this year into 2021. You do want to play the data center side of things. AMD, a great way to play it. We think the growth story there is absolutely enormous. Yes, the multiple, you're really paying kind of, a high multiple there. We love it there. NVIDIA, also a great way to play it. But, all across the board, data centers remain a great secular story, along with 5G, as well as, EVs and AI on the car side of things.
PCs were good, though, this quarter, right?
PCs were good. 2019, actually, the first year of growth we saw since 2011 in terms of PCs. We just don't think it's sustainable. When you look at what's driving the growth on the PC side of things, it's the enterprise side of things. It's the expiration of Windows 7 support that's kind of pulling in some of those orders. We, again, don't think that's sustainable. We think it starts to fall off into the second half of the year.
Stock, I'm looking right now, is going to open at a new high this morning. But you're hold?
Hold recommendation on the shares. Again, this is the value play within the industry. So not necessarily a horrible way to play it, especially given the fact that we now have clear signs this is a bottom in the industry. Potentially maybe you kind of want to take some, a leg kind of, a foot off the kind of the gas here in terms of semis. Maybe Intel is a good way to kind of play the next couple of quarters. But again, we do have concerns going into the second half of 2020 into 2021. So our view is there are better ways to play it.
The sector as a whole clearly has run up very strongly. Does this give you confidence that that run up is justified?
Well, our view is you typically want to be early into the game and you want to be early kind of getting out of it, right? So we have now seen the turn in the actual cycle. You don't want to be trying to call the cycle now, given we've actually seen the actual turn. We do think you've got a couple of more, quarters into this, given the secular drivers. But again, you want to play the secular stories at this point in time. Again, connectivity we think is a great way to look at it. Qualcomm, a name like Skyworks that just reported last night, we think are good ways to kind of play the industry right now.
Let me ask you quickly about Skyworks, since you mentioned it's good report. Stock down. How much of that has to do with the Broadcom Apple news, do you think?
I think there's a good amount of it that has to do with the Broadcom news. We do have a strong buy on Broadcom. We think that's great news for them. I think there's rumors out there on whether or not they're going to sell that RF business. Skyworks potentially had been considered as a potential buyer. We don't think that ends up happening. But our view, yes. I mean, this is all about a market share story when it comes to the RF industry. So the Broadcom news probably does impact Skyworks.
So you would recommend Skyworks, though?
We would, both Skyworks as well as Broadcom, because of the long-term secular story involved with 5G.